This video is brought to you by Voting Access for All Coalition. We represent a number of organizations in our county and state. We want to ensure that persons in pretrial situations, folks about to be released from jail and prison, and their families have the opportunity and knowledge they need to exercise their right to vote in all elections. You'll note throughout these videos there is this great artwork with these really powerful messages, and they're all made by Washtenaw high school students as part of the League of Women Voters poster contest.
I'm Cozine Welch, Executive Director of A Brighter Way, a nonprofit here in Washtenaw County that focuses on providing mentorship and reentry wraparound services to folks who return from prisons and jails in Washtenaw County. And I think the most relevant part about my story as it relates to voting is the fact that I was gone for 20 years while incarcerated. And while there's a lot of things that seem to make that most relevant, the reason why is because for 20 years, that means no one heard me. That means when people were voting, my voice wasn't being heard. And for me, that's why it's really important to vote, because we talk about making changes in the perspective of having a movement. If all those movements don't get together to have a singular force of movement when it comes to voting, we're just a bunch of disparate voices grumbling, not really getting anything done. And I think that when it comes to having a properly, commonly aligned voting goal, like that's how you institute real change.
I'm Jerry. I'm a returning citizen to our community. I spent 20 years in prison. I was released in March. And one of the experiences that I had while in prison was I had the ability to watch television and watch elected officials who should but by no means have ever been elected make decisions that affected myself, my community, my family, and my friends. When I got released in March, the greatest thing that happened was I regained my right to vote. I have now the right to make my voice heard. It's very important for me to have a voice to make a say on who makes the decisions in my community. And I would like to share with you today some of my thoughts about why it's important for you, your family and friends, and all of us to get together and make our voice heard through the voting process that we have a right to do. Even if you don't have the right to vote, if you're sitting in prison or in a county jail, the thing is that your family can, your friends can, and their voice is as important as ours. This is the way we choose our leaders. As you sit in your cell, you look around and look at the people and the things that are being done to you and for you, and they're being done by people who don't know you. They're done by people who really probably, for most part, don't care. We and our families have to join together and make our voice heard together.
My name is Evie Jordan, and I did 2 years in Huron Valley. And when I got out, I went door to door to stress the fact that we're felons, that we can vote. And a lot of people didn't even know that. And they felt that since they was a felon on parole or probation, that they couldn't vote. But I brought it to their attention. And I went to my neighborhood, and I didn't go all over around the world. I just went to my neighborhood to inform my neighborhood that I knew there was a lot of felons in my neighborhood that they could vote, and I went door to door. And I also had a car, and the people that didn't have a ride, I would drive them up to our local voting polls to have them vote and register. I always think about the presidential election is the main election, but it's 3 branches. We need to vote all 3 branches. We need to move seats. You need to, if you don't like your judge, go vote that judge, y'all get another judge. If you don't like your sheriff, your deputy, everybody, the mayor, everybody have terms. The Senate, they have terms too. And they've been there for 16 years. Nobody voted them out. So it's more power in numbers than sitting at home complaining about it. Go vote. They pulling the wool over your eyes thinking you can't, but you can. Your word needs to be heard.
I'm Daryl Woods. I am 48 years old. I spent 29 years in prison, or 28 years and 11 months incarcerated. When I went to prison, I was 18 years old. Never had the opportunity to vote in my life. I exercised my right to vote in the latest presidential primary. And it was very exciting. It was very empowering. And so I'm here to say that voting matters because It decides who's going to be the prosecutor. It decides who's going to be the judge. It decides who's going to be the mayor, the governor, and the president of the United States. These offices are vitally important to the fabric of society. And so I'm excited today to say that it is very important to vote.
Register to vote. Your vote matters.
To register to vote, you must be a U.S. citizen and at least 17 and a half years old. Find out if you are registered and where you are registered at michigan.gov/vote. There are two ways to register. You can register with a form or you can register online. To register with a form, you will need one of two IDs, either the last four numbers of your Social Security number or a driver's license state ID. To register online, you will need both the last four numbers of your Social Security number and a driver's license state ID. But don't wait, because during the last 14 days prior to the election, you'll have to register in person at the clerk's office with proof of residency. When you register with a form, make sure you use a black or blue pen, print clearly. The signature that you use should match your driver's license state ID. It will be the same signature that you use on your ballot. Your mailing address can be different from your home permanent address. This is the way the form will look. You need to make sure that you check the two boxes in the top right-hand corner. We need to know that you are a U.S. citizen and that you'll be 18 years old when you vote. You will need one of these IDs, either your driver's license state ID number or the last four numbers of your Social Security number. You need to put in your name and your birth date. The address must be complete. Sign it with your signature at the bottom and date it with today's date. Your home address is filled in here. If you want mail sent to a different address, you fill in this box here. The mailing address can be the jail. When you register online, you have to make sure that you enter your name and address exactly as it appears on your driver's license state ID. For example, if you have a middle name on your driver's license, you need to have a middle name on the registration form you fill out online. You will know right away if you are registered. Some things that are good to know: if you want to change the address where you registered, you can just simply re-register. You can have a ballot sent to an address that's different than your permanent address. A voter information card will be mailed to your registration address a few weeks after you register. You don't need this card to vote. It's just for your own information. Once you register, you are always registered. If you change your permanent address, however, you will need to re-register.
Remember, you can vote if you are a U.S. citizen and 18 or older, have a felony, have been released from prison or jail, awaiting arraignment for a trial, and you're on probation or parole.
And remember, voting by mail or absentee ballot is really easy. It's only 2 steps. You fill out an application, they send you a ballot, you fill out the ballot and mail it in. You don't even have to leave your house. You can just put it in the mailbox and postal carrier will pick it up. Voting by mail is safe.
You sign the outside of the envelope. That way, your ballot is always secret. No one will ever know who you voted for or what you voted for. You return it to your local clerk by 8 p.m. on Election Day. When you fill out your absentee ballot application form, make sure you use a black or blue pen, that you print clearly. The signature that you use should match the signature on your license state ID. It will be the same signature that you use on your ballot. Your mailing address can be different from your home permanent address. This is your Michigan absentee ballot application form. In the top box, you need to put your name, your address, your county, your city or township, and your date of birth. You can choose which elections you would like a ballot for, the November election, the August election, or both. Put your signature here, and then date today's date. If you want your ballot mailed somewhere other than your permanent address, you fill in these boxes, the one on the right for the November election and the one on the left for the August election. Ballots cannot be forwarded to a different address by mail. Your ballot will be sent to you, then you use a black or blue pen. You can take your time filling out your ballot. You don't have to vote for every candidate or every proposal. If you make a mistake and there's time, you can get another ballot. Your absentee ballot is safe and secure. For almost all the information you need to register to vote and to vote, you can go to the Michigan Voter Information Center at this link. For information about candidates and proposals, you can go to vote411.org, the website for the League of Women Voters.
Be reminded, there's 2 upcoming elections. August 4th, primary elections. November the 3rd, general election. Both are very important. Exercise your right.
But the primary is important. It's the filtration process that we go through. And we're setting it up for November. That's what primaries are. We set up the November election so that after August, we can get our groups together, our family and our friends, and we can gain support for that candidate that we want to hold the office that's running. And in our case, with the sheriff and the prosecutor and judges running, but particularly for returning citizens and families of incarcerated, these are really important positions that we have to fill. So we need to be prudent in looking into what these people are about and who's going to best serve us.
Not voting isn't a protest. You're forfeiting your freedom. When you do not vote, you have no right to object.
We need to vote in the primary because it's going to be a deciding factor in most cases who's going to be our state representative. And so if you don't take time to vote in that primary, you're going to get what you put out. And the old saying, we reap what we sow. And so if we don't sow into each elections, then we're going to reap what we put in.
Without your vote, your voice will not be heard.
When I was inside, I think about all those elections, all those chances to make change that were missed, but all the times I didn't engage in those conversations for whatever excuse I used, whether it was I didn't want to get in arguments over politics, or I didn't want to waste some of my 15-minute phone call on some stuff like that. I didn't recognize how important it was to take those moments, because that was how I became able to have a voice when I was basically rendered voiceless. And not only was I able to have a voice in that, but my family were able to find their own voice. And I missed out on that.
When we vote not just for ourselves, but for our family and our community.
Had I been able to get my family aware of who they should vote for, what elections were important, how my non-voice could have transformed into 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 voices and 15 kind of increments of voting power. I think that's why it's most important when you're inside to be sure you do what you can to get this information out to your family and friends and to motivate them to vote. Help them find ways that are going to make voting easier, register an absentee, whatever it may be, it's possible. But recognize that though you're voiceless, this is the way your voice is heard. And in turn, you also strengthen bonds with your family and friends. You also get them more involved. You get them more aware. It really pays forward.
I had to educate my family members on the voting process. I had the opportunity while incarcerated to do a lot of studying and understanding what the civil rights movement was about, the Voting Rights Act was all about. And I found that many of my families didn't have that knowledge. And when I was able to teach them or encourage them and direct them towards that information, they felt compelled also to exercise their franchise and to vote.
One of the important parts of this election and voting is making it inclusive with our family and friends. For me in particular, when I was sitting in prison, incarcerated and unable to vote, it also hurt my family. I was away from them for 20 years. We didn't have as much contact as we wanted. And they were saddened because they felt that they couldn't do anything about my situation. Well, the reality is that their votes are important. Their votes can make a difference in every election. We have family members and we have friends. They have family members and they have friends. We have to get together and vote. So I encourage you, contact your family and friends. Make sure they're aware that we're having two elections, one in August and one in November, and tell them how important it is to you that they vote. Because together, our voice is really strong. We can make a difference in our community, our state, and our country.
I have the great pleasure to work with my children, my son and daughter, during my incarceration. And one of the things that I had the opportunity to do is to teach them about their right to vote. They didn't have any clue about it and didn't have any understanding, and they heavily relied upon their father to teach them. And one of the greatest things that I felt was that my children exercised their right to vote, and they did it in a thoughtful way because they wanted to vote for the people who they believed that was going to represent the interests of their incarcerated father. And so I was so honored to have my children to vote my interests as well as their interests, because my interest was their interest and their interest was my interest.
Another thing too, let's just be honest. When we're inside, we've got the one privilege we find is time. We may not have as much access to resources like we do when we come home, but we have some time, and that time we can use to find out information that maybe our family members can't find out. We've got the privilege of having a little bit of extra time that maybe we could devote and develop in a way to kind of communicate to our friends and family who are the best people aligned with our interests at the local level. To give them a cheat sheet, if you will. I mean, everyone needs help. It's a communal thing. How else do you build community without helping one another? Like, to me, that's why it's really important for folks inside to reach out to those friends and family members, because that's how you multiply and magnify your voice.